see where God has taken me through my journey. So I'll just start that way. I'm a graduate of Nebraska Christian College. I graduated from Nebraska Christian College back in 1992, so just a few years ago. I was a third-generation student of Nebraska Christian College, meaning that my grandparents went there, my parents went there, and I went there. So it's been a college that's a part of my life for a long time, in my family's life for a long time. I went there with the idea that I was going to go into youth ministry. And so I got a degree in youth ministry with a minor in missions. I had spent some time in South Africa on the mission field during one of my internships, and just absolutely loved what I was doing in the area of missions and so forth. So I got my undergrad degree, graduated in 92. My wife graduated as well from Nebraska Christian with a 4-year Bible degree, and she also got her teacher's degree through a state college that we had. So they had a dual degree program that she was able to do in teaching. From there, made a decision, I don't know why at the time, but made a decision to go to graduate school. I felt that I had been given some opportunities to learn on the field as far as being in the churches and things, and I'll kind of allude to that in chapel this morning, but went to Cincinnati Christian University, or at the time Christian Seminary, and graduated there. I showed up, and my plan was to do a 2-year degree at Cincinnati, a degree in what's called religious education, master's in religious education. It was a 60-hour degree at the time, and I got there, and I absolutely loved seminary work. I actually excelled, graduated with honors, which I didn't do in my undergrad. I just spent more time, studying and really putting time in what God had for me at Cincinnati. But I was also at that point, God was tugging at my heart to get into ministry. And so I made a decision about halfway through that I wasn't going to go the full 2 years. But one of the things that my parents taught me was never quit until you complete something. And so I had to complete something. And so I completed my 36-hour Master's of Practical Ministry. I got that completed in 1 year, which was crazy. That was taking J-terms, that was taking summer classes. I had one class that I had to go back for to actually graduate, but I had completed all my classwork except for one before I left there. God took me on a journey, took my wife and I on a journey of the unknown. She was pregnant at the time with her first child, and thought I had a church lined up to go to, and it didn't work out, and I ended up in my parents' basement. It's humbling. It's a humbling experience to think that you've been married. We had been married at that point for about 5 years, 4 years at the time, and thought things were, God had a plan for us, and He did have a plan for us. Just was at the time my parents' basement, and so God opened a door, and if there's one thing I could kind of give you little tips along the way as I talk of things that I've learned as I go for you to keep in mind. Network with people. Okay, I'm going to say that now. Network with people, because I'm sitting in my parents' basement. I get a phone call from the church that because they knew of me because of an internship I had done previously, and actually the principal of the high school of the church where I was at, or had interned at, had moved to this new church, new town. He said, "Hey, I hear that Tim Snyder's looking for a position. He interned with us at this church a couple of years ago. I think he'd be a good guy to bring on." That's key. And that's not the first time it happened in my career, where I knew someone knew me, and luckily my reputation was good enough that they reached out to me. And so my first position as full-time was, it was at a time where churches were trying to get away from calling them associate pastors. So my title was Family Life Minister. Kind of a fun title that says you do everything that we ask you to do in that regard of the church, right? So it was an associate role. And so when I first came in, the church was running about 125. I was their only second staff, full-time second staff they've ever had. They had a lead pastor, and they always had a part-time youth pastor. And so this was a big step for the church to hire a second full-time person to come in. And came in 125 in attendance, and it was. I walked into one of our elders' homes, and they handed me this book that says, "You're now teaching children." And I was also overseeing student ministry. I actually helped start the first contemporary worship service at that church. We were running literally running slides. Our secretary is making slides for the little slide carousel. I mean, seriously, that's old school where we were at the time. But introducing drums and guitar to a church in 1996 in Grand Island, Nebraska. I had a wonderful opportunity to serve there for almost 11 years. I was there in Grand Island, and my role changed. Second little point that I would make to you as you go through your careers, you're starting your career in ministry or wherever God takes you, is be open to change. Okay, be open to change, because change is going to happen regardless if you want it to or not, and you need to know yourself. I'm one that I know myself well as I've gotten older to realize that I need something new in my life on a regular basis. You may be one as an individual that says, hey, I'm steady Eddie, I like things just to be the same all the time, and I'm good in one position long term. It's one of those situations where I talk to people and say, so how long have you been working here when they retired? They say, oh, I've been here for 36 years, when they retired from an organization or a manufacturing company or something. And that's not heard of much anymore, where you're really sticking into it for that long of a period of time. Now, the lead pastor that I'm under right now at Blue Springs has been there for 28 years. That's pretty good. The pastor in Grand Island, when I left there, and he's still there. He started in 1994, and he's still there as their lead pastor. Stability is good. Stability is good. But I also knew in my life that I like change. I'm a change agent. I like to see things happen, make things happen. So my role changed throughout those years. I helped start an after-school program at the church. I helped do different programming and different things. I ended up overseeing the office and the management of the church right before I left. And at the time, I didn't like it. I didn't think I'd ever be in church management. I didn't see myself doing that. I'm a people person. I want to be with people. And one of the other little things and tips I'll give you is know who you are when you go into ministry. Know who you are when you go into ministry, because if you like to be with people and you're finding yourself behind a desk, most of your day, you're going to drive yourself crazy and you're going to be unhappy. Find the balance. Find the balance. My wife always says, are you getting enough people time? Because she knows me well enough to know that if I'm not with people, and if I'm just looking at my computer and stats and things of that nature, I'm not at my best. So find out where you're best at and make sure you're at least leaning into it. You're going to have the paperwork, you're going to have the office management side of things, but make sure you know who you are as you're going into ministry. That's going to morph, that's going to change, but at least have an understanding going into what you're looking for in your ministry role as you do that. So God called me back to my alma mater, Nebraska Christian College. I had the fortunate opportunity to go back. It was my dream job, to be honest with you. That's why I had gone to seminary, is to go back to a Bible college and to teach. And so I came on staff actually as the registrar of the college, but I was also the athletic director and men's basketball coach. I spent many times here at Central as the basketball coach, as a player as well. Back in the day, I played all 4 years at Nebraska Christian College, and then also as a coach when I came back to NCC. My role changed again at NCC. I then became the recruiter for the college. I was the director of admissions, and so that was an exciting time, but it got to be too much. I was on the road too much. Things were changing with the climate of the college. They were looking at changing some things in the athletic program, and I said, you know what, God's got a different plan for me. I didn't know what that plan was. And another little tip is that I want to give you is listen to God more than yourself. So I did not sign a contract with the college after 4 years. They offered me a contract, and I said, you know what, God's got something different for me. But I didn't know what it was. And for 7 months, I was unemployed. Okay, had a family to care for, and didn't know what to do. Had a couple churches that were talking with me and were interested, but I was searching, God, what is it that you want? What is it that you need to clear for me and start something new for me? And so I tried to start my own job, my own career, actually, as a career coach. And I enjoyed it. I got some training in that. But here's the other thing I learned. Again, I mentioned I like to be around people. I was by myself trying to start this job, and it was horrible. I was unhappy. I wasn't motivated. My wife is a stay-at-home computer consultant. She would not do well in a setting where she's working with lots of people. She likes to be by herself. She knows that of herself. I can't handle that. I was going crazy being by myself and trying to start a job. Plus, I had a hard time asking for money. Let's be honest with you. When you're starting your own business and you're career coaching, you came to me and said, hey, I want you to coach me. Great, and at the time, I had a hard time saying, yeah, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars for me to coach you. That was tough for me. That was difficult. So it was January of 2010, and I had made the commitment to my wife that if I hadn't got the career coaching off the ground, that I was going to start looking for a job. And I'd been looking at the opportunity to be a chaplain. I didn't know how or what. In a hospital setting, to be a chaplain, you have to go through what are called CPE credits, and you have to do about a year's worth of that. So I was just kind of reaching out, and again, networking. My wife went to a women's event at a church that we had just started attending. My wife and women's events don't mesh. My wife doesn't go to women's events. She doesn't like those types of things. That's just not who she is. Again, she's more of a quiet person and so forth. But she went, and she met someone, and they said, hey, what does your job? What does your husband do for a living? Well, he's unemployed right now, but looking for a chaplain position. Great, we're hiring someone for a chaplain for a hospice agency. Have him stop by and give his resume and let's talk. Next thing you know, 10 days later, I was one of 75 applicants. Came in late in the ball game, but 10 days later I was offered a position as a chaplain for a brand new hospice agency in the Omaha area. That was a great, interesting experience. I never thought God would have me in the healthcare world. Didn't know what that was going to look like, what a chaplain sitting by the bedside of someone that's dying was going to be. I had been by the bedside in ministry, but on a daily basis, the toll, what was that going to look like in my life? And I loved it, absolutely loved it. I loved being with people. I learned how to play guitar, so I would take my guitar and play the old hymns to the people sitting at the bedside. And absolutely loved that experience. But I had a boss that spoke into me. And actually, she's, and I'll be honest, she was my only boss at the time, up to that point in my career history, that I really felt believed in me, that really saw something in me. And not that the other bosses were bad, none of them were bad, but that her personality and mine fit, that she said, I see something in you that I think if you have a choice. You can be a chaplain the rest of your career and you're going to do a great job at that, she said. She said, I'm going to retire here soon, and I think you can become the administrator of this agency if you will follow my steps and learn what it's like to run an agency. So over the next 6 years, 2 of them as a director, and then she retired, I became the administrator of a hospice agency, multi-million-dollar business, had over 40 staff underneath my leadership, and absolutely enjoyed the ministry of hospice. Something I learned about myself, though, and something that I struggled with, and here's another little tip for you. Whatever you do when you leave Central, be it in full-time vocational ministry or in the workplace, never doubt that you're doing ministry. Never doubt that you're doing ministry. Because here's the deal. When I moved into the hospice realm, when I committed my life to Jesus Christ to go into full-time vocational ministry at the age of 17, I still remember the place and the time that I stepped down from some risers and said, I'm gonna go into full-time ministry. That's all that was on my mind. So when God had me go this other direction into the healthcare world, I thought I was failing God. I'll be honest with you. I thought I was just taking a job. I didn't see it at the time as doing ministry. But so interesting now, and again, hindsight's always 20/20 in that regard. The individuals that I worked with, the influence I had, the people this day that are not Christians, but I have an influence on for Christ, is almost greater than in vocational ministry. And it took me a while to realize that. It took me a while to see that God had a place for me there in the healthcare world to reach people for Christ. I did funerals for a boss who was agnostic for his mom. I had the opportunity to speak Jesus to people regardless of where I was at. But I felt at the time felt at the time I was letting God down because I wasn't in church work. I wasn't in vocational church work. Again, sometimes hindsight's 20/20 when you learn those things. So as I went through that, Eric and I were talking this morning at breakfast that, I came to a point where hospice was burning me out after 8 years. I was always on call, 24/7, strenuous situations. If you haven't experienced being at the bedside of people as they're going through their end days, it's not the person that's struggling, it's the family that's struggling. And they're the ones having a hard time. And those that know Jesus Christ and know the outcome of where their loved one is going, it's not a bad situation. But man, for those that don't have a hope in their life or hope for their loved one in their life, it's strenuous, it's tense, and it wore me down. It wore me down. I was mentioning I had to carry 2 phones. I was always on call, and just kind of wore me to a point. And I look back and I say, okay, God, now what? What's next in my career? I really hadn't changed too many jobs. I was at church for 11, I was at the Christian college for 4, and I was at hospice for 8. I'll turn 50 this next month, and have 3 positions going into when I was turning 48 at the time. Pretty good in that sense. And I just felt God's call back to ministry. I felt God's call back to the church. I love the church. I love what the church stands for. Is the church perfect? I think you all know it's not. But I just felt called back to it. And so I thought, okay, God, where do you want me? What kind of role do you have me going into? I enjoy speaking. I enjoy preaching. But I don't see myself doing that on a day-to-day basis. And so I said, okay, God, what did I learn through my careers at the church, at the college, at the hospice agency that you can use? And I just kept coming back to an executive pastor role. One thing that I absolutely love, and that's being in the second chair. You may be put in a place where you're in the second chair. How do you learn and how do you grow in the second chair? Meaning, you're there to support somebody else. Okay, you're there to support somebody else. Now, I love to lead. I feel that's a gift God has given to me is to be a leader. But I love to see other people lead better. And I want the team that I oversee doing that. I'd rather them get the credit in God's glory for what they're doing than me. I want to see them succeed. So I applied for one church position, and that's an executive pastor at Blue Springs Christian Church. I still have 2 girls up in Nebraska. I have a 25-year-old who's married, lives in Omaha. I have a 20-year-old who's going to be graduating from the University of Nebraska in Lincoln here in May. And we didn't want to get too far away. Although the snow and cold, my wife said, we could have gone anywhere. And I said, yeah, we could have gone anywhere. We chose to go to Kansas City area. But I applied for one position. And I look back now and I say, God provided. God provided me the tools, provided me the experiences to walk into a church who had never had an executive pastor before, a brand new role. But the lead pastor was trying to do it all. Blue Springs Christian Church, we run about 1,000 on the weekend from nursery all the way up. And he was overseeing all the staff. He was preaching every Sunday. He was helping with the management of the church itself. And it was just too much for him. He was at that time 26 years in the ministry. He needed some help. And that was where I stepped in and took on that role. So my role as executive pastor is that I do oversee about 12 staff members currently. I make sure that they're meeting their needed goals and objectives as they go through their career at the church. I'm a problem solver, so I'm in lots of meetings, helping to try to solve problems with people and to set the cast, the vision out there. I oversee the financial aspect. Actually, after I get done here at Central, I'm driving back tonight to who knows how long the budget meeting will run tonight. But I had to prepare the budget last week, got that all completed, and turned over to our overseers, our elders of the church to review, and got a meeting tonight to see what God has in store for us in that regard. I oversee all the buildings and grounds aspects. So we've got volunteers that oversee and do all the repairs right now, or I hire out the electrical and things that need to get done in that regard. So my role is varied. There's never a boring day. Lots of meetings, lots of things. One of the things that when I got into the hospice realm, one of the things I struggled with when leaving the church and the Bible college realm was, am I employable? Church will hire me. But what about the outside world? Will business hire me? And what I would encourage you to think of is, what skills are you learning now and that you will learn in ministry full time, that if God called you away from a church work for whatever reason, that you can do in the business world, if that's where God calls you. I had to learn how to be confident. I'll be honest with you. Up until the age of 40, when I met my boss at the hospice agency, I wasn't as confident as I am now. Even in the roles that I played in the church and the college, until I had someone speak into me, I didn't have the confidence to do what I'm doing now. I wouldn't. If God called me away from Blue Springs Christian Church at any point, I have the confidence that God's going to provide. He's shown it to me every time. Every time that the door has opened or closed, He's been there and has shown me the opportunities that are there. So that's just kind of my history, just to kind of give you an understanding that ministry will take you lots of places. Trust God and where you're going with your ministry in that regard. I'll spend just a couple minutes about our residency program, and I'm going to have you guys just ask questions. I talk a lot. I enjoy talking, but I want you guys to ask questions about anything that I've learned or you want to know about my roles. But Blue Springs Christian Church, when I came, it's been 2 years this next week I'll have been there. We were trying to hire a second full-time student minister, and let's be honest, we were not having success. Here's where we were not having success, because I've interviewed and hired hundreds of people over my career. Okay, through a hospice agency, we'd hire. There's lots of turnover, things going on. I'm going to use the word confidence again. When I do phone interviews with individuals looking for a position, I can tell you in a heartbeat over the phone if that person is confident enough to be working alongside. If you have the confidence in who you are, you're gonna go places, and I don't mean that in a pompous way. God's gonna take you places if you're confident in who you are. So when I came, we couldn't find anybody, and actually I did some phone interviews, and there was one young man that did a phone interview. And I'm like, I want to hire him, but he had no student ministry experience, zero. And I went back to our overseers of the church. I said, I think we need to change our focus. I think we need to go to a residency type focus where we give students that are really desiring to do ministry and try to figure out what is it they want to do, what is it that they're excited about, to do that residency and do that in a year's time, and not hire somebody full-time student ministry-wise. And they said, okay, well, let's give it a shot. And so the gentleman that I interviewed over the phone that I wanted to hire but had no experience was our first resident. And he came in because he had the confidence over the phone, and he came and did the interview in front of me, and I knew this is someone I want to work with. This is someone that God's got in store with some things. And so he came on as our first resident. And at the end of last year, our student minister resigned, and so it was just our resident. Well, he had proven himself in those 9 months that we had hired him to move him into that position. And so Nick Baca is a graduate of Ozark Christian College. Nick came in as our first resident and moved into that role. At the time, we're saying, okay, we want to have 2 residents. And so we hired someone internal. He was he was a former student, still a member of the church, and he was trying to figure out what God had in store for him. So we brought him on as a resident as well. And he worked alongside Nick, and then he finished his time up this past May. So that's when we hired Jake Warren and Cassie Parks at the time. Cassie just got married a couple weeks ago now. But Jake and Cassie have been with us since Cassie started in May, and Jake started in June with us for a full 1-year residency. Right now, their role is primarily student residents, working with our students, middle school and high school, although we do have them working in a capacity of a next gen, so they're also doing some children's ministry, learning that. We are going to be probably transitioning our residency from just a student resident to a next gen resident. We see the benefit, I did anyway, growing in my ministry, of not every church is just going to hire a student minister. There may be an opportunity for a student minister or an individual that's going to go in that's going to have to do it all, from children's to students. So we want to at least give an overall view of what we're doing, not that one is going to be focus over the other, though it could. We'll be doing that. So we're doing one-year residencies. We provide the housing for our residents through people in our church that open up their homes to do that. And then we pay a stipend for our residents as well to live on. It's not much, but they're not having to pay to be there. We're providing the food and housing for them, so we try to do what we can to provide what we can for them to live on in that regard. So we're just in our second year of doing it. Again, the intent is that that residency will end for both of them at the end of May, and that we will be looking this spring to be bringing in 2 more residents starting June 1 of next year to come on staff with us in that regard. Questions? Anything at all about ministry, about anything? Yeah.
So you talk about the confidence that you can hear over the phone.
Yeah.
What is it that you're listening to or hearing?
Yeah, that they at least, how you talk, the the I don't know, give an answer. Just be honest. I'm not sure of this. I think I can learn it, even if you don't know it. Even to say it, I said, have you ever worked with children? No, I haven't. You know what? I'm be happy to do that. I'm happy to learn that. So even if you, one of the things, if you don't have the answer, you don't have the experience, that's okay. That's okay. Be honest. Just say it. I'm willing to learn, or this isn't something that's interesting to me, or whatever it may be, but just how you talk, how you articulate yourself in conversation is key. Because if you're going to stand up in front of students, or you're going to stand up in front of parents, they need to know that you can at least articulate. Now, you may be quiet, you may be shy, that's okay. But just be able to articulate well. So that's what I'm listening for when I do phone interviews, is that you can at least, you can sell me that you're confident. You may not be confident, but you can sell me that you're confident. Because here's the deal. I feel that anyone can learn, and has the ability to learn, and has the opportunity to learn. I'm willing to give anybody a shot. I really am. I am willing to give anybody a shot. If you're confident enough to say, I'm willing to learn. If you're saying, I'm willing to learn, I'll give you the shot. If you're him humming around, that makes it difficult to say, are you confident enough that I can teach you? The other thing that I would say too over the phone that I would be cautious to you on is how you talk about previous employment. How you talk about previous employment. No matter how bad it may have been, how you talk about it is critical. Because if you're really negative, we're looking to hire a children's pastor and children's minister, and interviewed a gentleman I actually knew, but I also knew the situation he was coming out of, and it wasn't all his fault of the situation he was coming out of. But he didn't help himself by how he talked about the situation he was coming out of. And not that we pressed him on it, not that we were trying to dig by any means. He just didn't help himself on how he was talking about the ministry that he was just leaving. So again, by being positive, so you know what, it just didn't work out. We didn't see eye to eye or something of that nature, versus this is what he did, or this is what she did, or whatever it may be. Not too many churches want a whole lot of baggage that you're going to bring in. They want you to be honest, and we'll work. Again, I'll work with anybody. I really will, as long as you're willing to learn. So that answers your question there. Other questions? Yeah.
So how do you balance the idea of you looking for a confident person when you say that you were hired on and didn't actually learn confidence until you were in your 40s?
Yeah. I sold myself. I don't mean I was fake.
Okay.
But I was able to portray that I can learn, because every job I went into I had not done before. I had never coached basketball in a college setting. I had never been an athletic director. I had not been a registrar at a college. I had not been a chaplain before. So it was I'm willing to learn. So the confidence was not so much that self-confidence was a challenge for me. I was to be honest with you, it was a big challenge for me, because I was always worried. I was always worried about what other people were thinking. let me tell you what. Stop it. Stop it. Don't go there. Don't go there. There's a video out, and it's old, but it's Bob Newhart is an old TV character. But anyway, he's got a video out. If you type in and go to YouTube and you call it "Stop It," if you do that was me, where he's yelling at me across the, she's got this self-doubt that's going on, and he's like, "Stop it," and
bury you in a box.
what's that? Yeah, exactly. You're buried in a box. That's the video. That's where I had to get to. I had to stop this self-negative talk. And so that confidence comes to, you may not have the experience, but you know what? I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to do this. I'll show you that I can do it. And by finding, another key is finding someone that believes in you, that can help you. Ministry is lonely, okay? Ministry can be lonely. Ministry doesn't have to be lonely, okay? It's hard to get good friends when you're in ministry. My wife and I have been there for 2 years, and we're just now after 2 years, have a small circle of friends that I feel I could go to. It can be tough. Ministry's not easy. But finding someone that you can bounce ideas off of, or that has the confidence in you and you can talk about things, even if it's not at the church, be it here at the college, be it somewhere else, having someone you can talk with is also a huge part of it. So, yeah.
Would you say that it's like a balance between humility and confidence?
Absolutely it is. And again, I absolutely it is. I don't stand up here. I don't want you to come across that I'm cocky. I am humbled by the experiences that I've had. I'm humbled to see what God has done through me. Trust me, He has had to do a lot of work in me. And I now have the confidence in Jesus that I didn't have 20 years ago. Not confidence in myself, but confidence that Jesus has whatever happens to me in the future. And if God calls me away to Loose Springs and I was without work for any period of time, I know God's got a plan. And I didn't know that 20 years ago. I freaked out. I was one that was taking the Alka-Seltzer before I was going on dates with my wife at the time, because I was a nervous wreck. Seriously, it was a bad situation in my life. And so I just had to learn that God's got it. God's got it, not me. I got to trust God in what God's doing, and then He'll take me wherever that leads me. Yeah.
Would you say that being teachable is probably one of the biggest advantages that we can have going into ministry?
Absolutely. Great question. For you, yes, you need to know, and the things that you're learning here at Central are critical to what you're doing. You need to be solid in God's Word. You need to be solid in what the different methods are always changed. The message does not, but you need to be teachable. Help me understand. Help me learn. I think that's where the residencies, are great. If you go into full-time ministry coming right out of college, great. Find someone, if it's in the church or outside the church again, to learn from. Learn online. Continue that learning. I'm not a book reader. I just don't read books. That's just not who I am. But man, I will listen, and I will watch videos and sermons and things, and I will continue to be a learner, an active learner. If you stop being an active learner, that's when you become stale in ministry. So yeah, being that is key. That's a great question. Yeah.
So how did you decipher whether God was calling you away to something, or whether that was maybe, because in my life I feel like I am a lot like you, where I like change a lot, but I want to make sure if God is asking me to go somewhere that I'm doing that because He's asking me, not because I'm bored of a place and I just want to do something else. I want to follow God's will.
Yeah, absolutely. Keys to that is this. If you're in God's will, if you are doing what God's calling you to do at that time and moment, when He's ready to call you somewhere, for me, this is me, just internally, I knew it. I knew it. It wasn't a self-doubt of I'm bored or I'm tired of this. It was just God's pulling. And it was tough because I can tell you, the healthcare agency I was at, as the administrator up there, they didn't want me to leave. Okay, I had double our size of the hospice agency. I had grown everything that was going on. They didn't want me to leave. They were actually looking for another position for me within the healthcare agency for me to stay. But I just felt God's call that I needed to go somewhere else. I needed to do something else for him. And I just think it's an internal thing. I just think you'll know when God's saying, okay, I've done with you what I can now. I'm going to move you on to something else. I really do. My wife jokes with me because it's about an every 2-year cycle for me. Well, this is year 2 now. We're finishing at Blue Springs, and she's like, okay, you hearing anything from God lately? I mean, we joke about it now, and we can do that after 30 years of marriage. But I said, no, God's got me where He's got me right now. In the future, maybe. So, anything else? Yeah.
What are some common things that you find that, young Bible college graduates are doing that is setting them up to not succeed?
Not succeed,
like,
or to succeed? What are the things?
Actually, to succeed. That would be better.
Yep. So again, keys for me: continue to learn. Even if that doesn't mean you're going on to seminary, I mean, just that you're learning, reading. Like I said, I don't like to read, but we've been doing book studies within our staff, on leadership and things. Continue to learn. 2, that again you're willing to learn that way, but also learn practically. That you're working with someone, that you're open and honest to say, I don't know this. If you come out and just say it, I'd rather hear that. I'd rather be able to help you learn it than you try to fake your way through it. Just to be honest, I think is key for that. When I, again with Nick hiring him on as student minister, he had, I'd encourage you, don't think that church work is a place to go if you want to just be lazy. I'm just going to say that out loud. Okay? I'm just going to say it out loud because some may say, well, I'm just going to be a youth minister. I'm just a student minister. I'm just going to hang out with kids all the time. Ministry is hard work. It's rewarding work. It is wonderful work. I love what I do. But it's hard. And so you have to go in knowing that you're willing to give whatever it takes to do that. Now, it's also finding balance because I'm big on that with my staff. How many nights of the week are you out? I don't want you out more than 2 nights a week doing ministry work. I'm very protective, if I can say it that way, to make sure that there's balance for their family and their personal life. I could do ministry all the time. My wife wouldn't like that. My health would not go well for that. And through this budget season, she's seen it. Many nights out, going in at 6 o'clock in the morning, not getting home till 7 o'clock at night. Working on budget stuff. She's saying, when's the slowdown happen? I said, as soon as I get done at Central. Because I was preparing for this time with you guys today. When I get home and get this budget thing done tonight, it gets quiet for me. So yeah, just be open, be honest, just be yourself. Be yourself. Don't fake it. Don't fake it. Be yourself, but be honest in that regard. Got my time?
Yeah. Unless somebody wants to stick around and talk.
I say stick around and talk. I'm going to be available during lunch. I know I think everything's filled up except for the 1:30 to 2 o'clock time frame for the interview times right now. I have to leave at 2:30 to go back for the meeting this evening, so I'm only here until 2:30. But
Where are the interviews?
they're in the theater, is what I believe. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's where I think Brandon's got me set up at, is in the theater room. But yeah, I'm going to be around speaking in chapel, and then during lunch and so forth, I'll be around. So love to visit with you if you have certain questions or just want to chat about ministry. Love to do that. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Tuesday or Thursday, we got people speaking. Who's speaking on Thursday? Boom. Very good.
Did you send us our time?
Yeah, I noticed. Today was your day to shine. We're thankful to have faith-filled ministry friends, unless you guys change your mind about being here.